In this video, I'd like to talk about how to solve equations with parentheses. So you can see we have this example here, and we have sets of parentheses on both sides of the equation. So generally speaking, with problems like these, the first step is to get rid of the parentheses. So let me write that down. We want to say generally, because this doesn't always happen. There are exceptions where maybe we'd want to get rid of a fraction first or something like that. But generally speaking, if you see parentheses, so if you see parentheses, the first step is to distribute or to get rid of the parentheses. So with this problem, with these two different sets of parentheses, we are going to distribute to start this problem off to get rid of the parentheses and effectively transform this equation into one with variables on both sides, and then we'll solve it like we did in our previous video with variables on both sides. So let me first rewrite this so that we can start working on it. So we have 6 parentheses minus 2g minus 1 equals minus parentheses 13g plus 2. So we're going to distribute. The 6 is going to distribute to both of these terms. And remember, distribution is just multiplication. So we'll do 6 times this first term, minus 2g. So that would be minus 12g. And then we have 6 times minus 1, which would be minus 6. And over here, this is a little bit tricky, but effectively you have to distribute this negative to both of these. If it helps, you can think about this as minus 1 times all of this. Though generally, we probably won't put the 1 there, but if it helps you think of it that way, then go for it, since you can really multiply anything by 1. So we have to distribute this negative to each of these terms, and since they're both positive, all this is going to do is just make them both negative. So we have minus 13g minus 2. And now we have an equation with variables on both sides of the equation. And remember, my advice from the previous video is you want to move the variables to the side with more. And both of these coefficients on g, the minus 12 and the minus 13, these are both negative numbers. So which of them is a bigger number, or which of them is more positive? Well, that would be the minus 12. So we're going to move the variables to that side. So this is a minus 13g, so we will use addition to cancel that out. And we got to do it to both sides so that we don't change the equation. And minus 12 plus 13 would just be 1, or just g. So you get g minus 6 equals, this cancels out, minus 13 plus 13 is 0. And we get minus 2. And let me just make a little bit more room. We can work up here. So g minus 6 is minus 2. And to get g by itself, we just got to get rid of this minus 6. We can use addition to cancel that out, because minus 6 plus 6, that's just 0. And you get that g is minus 2 plus 6, which is 4. So we got an answer. Now we want to check the answer. If you remember my comments from the video with equations with variables on both sides, I mentioned that at this point, these equations are getting pretty tedious and difficult to check. So I will make a video on how to solve or how to check these with the calculator. For now, I will show you how to do this, because you should be checking it every time you solve one of these until you feel like you have it mastered. And you won't always have a calculator available, or maybe you do have it available, but you don't want to get in the habit of using a calculator without really understanding what's going on. If you can't do it by hand, then you probably shouldn't use the calculator yet. You should only use the calculator once you have mastery of doing it by hand. So I'm going to show you how to check this by hand. And this one's not too bad. There are no fractions or decimals, but we're going to plug it in. So we're going to check our work. For our g equals 4, we'll plug it in anywhere we see a g. So let me change colors. We'll do 6 parentheses minus 2 times 4 minus 1 equals minus 13. Let me make a little more room. Times g, which is 4, plus 2. So let's see if this is true. And here we have minus 2 and 4 make minus 8, and then minus 1 would be minus 9. So we have 6 times minus 9, which will be minus 54. And over here, we have minus 13 times 4. We can do 4 times 10, which is 40. 4 times 3, which is 12. And 40 plus 12 is 52. And we'll add 2 to that, and then take its opposite. So notice both sides do simplify to minus 54 when you fully simplify them. So that means we can feel very confident that this is in fact the right answer. Okay, with that in mind, let's move on to another problem very similar. And this time we're going to be solving for h. So let me just rewrite this. We have minus parentheses 2h minus 18. We don't have any fractions or decimals. And so our first step here is just to get rid of these parentheses. We are going to distribute. And like the last one, you could think of this as minus 1 being distributed to both of these terms, though you don't need to write that. So the negative is going to distribute to both of those. And effectively, whatever their signs are in the beginning, they're just going to be the opposite now. Like this 2h was a positive inside, but now it's going to be minus 2h. And we want the opposite of negative 18, which would be positive 18. So both of their signs flip when distributing that negative. And now we have an equation with variables on both sides. We want to move them to the side with more, just to avoid negative numbers. And to cancel out this minus 2h, we will add 2h on each side. So there we get that 9h, this is 0, equals 18. And to get rid of this 9 times h, because remember, we always want just h equals something. So to get rid of that multiplication by 9, we're going to use division. So we'll divide each side by 9, because we know 9 over 9 is just 1, so they effectively cancel. And we get that h is 18 divided by 9, which is just 2. So we found a nice whole number answer. We can plug this in to check. Anywhere we see an h, so you get 7. Actually, let me write check up here. So you get 7 times 2 equals minus, parentheses, 2 times 2. Let me make just a bit more room. Minus 18, and we'll see if that simplifies to something true. So this is 14 over here, and we get the opposite of 4 minus 18. But 4 minus 18 would be negative 14. So we want the opposite of negative 14, which is 14, which means we can feel very confident that h does, in fact, equal 2.